All right, I think we may have it here. Oh, Elliot says nothing yet. Give it a few seconds. I think it's coming through, Elliot. If you want to log out and log back in, that's fine as well. I'm going to hold off for another 5 minutes just to allow everybody to, okay. If there's anybody out there who can see me, please let me know. Apparently refreshing works. Perfect. So while we're waiting, I think my camera is on, so I apologize for still learning this new program. Glynis, you say you can hear and see me. Can you see me right now? Because I'm looking at the chat box, so if that works. Donna says all good. Perfect. That's good news. You can see me. So this is good. So I guess when I have the chat box open, I shouldn't be sticking my tongue out at people then, right? All right, my apologies. We'll wait a few minutes here just to make sure, yeah, make sure everybody's back on before we get going. We had most of the people back on here. I'm just doing a quick, if you can just type in that you can see. So I've got Elliot, Glynis, Charmaine, Donna, Paul, Charmaine, Alan. All right, coming on here now. All right, well, my apologies, everyone. This is a brand new program, totally different than the one I used to use, but it gives me more options and features moving forward. There's lots I have to learn on it yet, and this is only my second time using it. And apparently I missed one very important step, albeit a little one. It was extremely important. So here we are, 20 minutes behind schedule. So welcome to 5 Homes to Freedom. This is module number 2, and it's a pretty lengthy module. It's a little bit longer module than I was planning on initially. Lots of information to share, and this past week I was involved in a personal development program, so I was gone from Thursday till I just got back here actually before the webinar. So unfortunately, I wasn't available to follow up and make sure things were good. And as it turns out, I forgot to give Jen the analyzer and the mortgage analyzer and the property analyzer to upload as well. So those have both been installed. So you can go to the university site and you can download both of those programs and you can play with those. And because of the size of module number 2, what I'm going to do is break it into 2 parts. to give you more time to go through all of the information and material, and give you more time to play with the analyzers as well, because those analyzers are going to generate a lot of Q&A as well. So I'll hold off putting up the material for module number 3 until next Monday, and give you lots of time to play with that. So what I'm going to be doing here is I got to get this recording. Okay, so we are now having this recorded live. So the live recording will be uploaded by tomorrow to the university site as well. So you will continue to get messages from the webinar provider saying that you will have access to the live replay, or the replay recording rather, for a few days. Don't worry about that, because we will have a full recording on the website for you to go back and review anytime you want, for as long as you want. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to play the review, which I recorded earlier. The end of the review, we will open it up to Q&A. So everybody should be able to see this okay. And we'll hit play. Here we go. All right then, well, let's get started with the review. We're going to take a look at lessons 1. Hang on a sec here. I have to do screen share. Come on, Ken. Do screen share. Come on, what's going on here? Yeah, just a second here. Why can't I get rid of this thing? Okay, so, sorry, hang on, get rid of that. Okay, so we're going to turn the camera off and do the screen share. And get this going. Come on here, why isn't that? All right. Can you see the screen? Can people see the screen okay now? If somebody can, the last person there, Regan, he said all is great. Can you see the screen now though? Hello out there. Oh my Lord. Not sure why this isn't okay, I'm having all kinds of problems here tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to play the recording. I'm just going to go live here and go through the recordings manually. So just making sure here. All right. So in lesson number 1, actually, I just want to make sure people can still hear me. All right, so I've turned the camera back on, so you should be able to see me, and we're just going to go with that tonight. So in lesson number 1, what we talked about was the sources of money. We talked about the banks. We talked about the big 4 banks in the US market. We talked about the big 5 banks in Canada. And we then talked a little bit about, I'll talk about mortgage brokers more in a second here, but we talked about those briefly. We then looked at private money and vendor takebacks, which is where a seller will hold some of the financing instead of going to the bank. It could be some or all of the financing. It's a strategy you probably won't be too familiar with, or you won't be using too often in this particular strategy with the 5 homes. We also talked about the use of registered retirement funds, whether it be in the US market, the 401ks, or in the RSPs. With the private lending, we also talked about the fact that it can be, there's 2 sources primarily for private lending, and that's going to be private individuals who lend money to you at a higher rate of interest. Those are called hard money lenders. The hard money lenders will lend out at rates of 10 to 15%, and it's usually short term. It can be useful, but it's definitely not something you want to play with too much. The bigger source for private lending is when you use people's lines of credit. Now that could be your own line of credit, or it could be family, friends' lines of credit. And I talked about the ability to generate an infinite return for your friends if they're using their lines of credit. I expect that'll probably generate a few questions, that concept of infinite returns, but that's not something you're going to want to promote to people, that they can get an infinite return on their investment. You're going to want to tell them that, you know, they can get a pretty decent return, maybe 7, 8, or 10%. And once they agree to that concept, then you can go a little bit further into the idea of explaining to them the infinite return portion of that. But that's a great way to attract lenders to you. And it's nice also to be able to have access to that kind of money. If you could have lines of credit available to you totaling $300,000 or $400,000, then that allows you the opportunity to negotiate better deals when purchasing properties. You still want to make sure that you have the ability to qualify for a conventional mortgage after the fact. But if you can go into a deal and go in knowing that you don't have to get financing from a bank to close on the deal, then you can close with fewer terms in the offer, which might give you a bit of an edge when it's in a competitive market. The 401k, I gave you a link for Paul Black here from SpirePoint, who is one of the top, if not the top, educators with respect to RSP investing in Canada. I also provided you a link for in the US market. If there's anybody in the US watching tonight, you can just click on that link and you can get more information about that. Then in lesson number 2, we got into a little bit more about the difference between banks and mortgage brokers. And if you haven't figured it out already, I tend to lean a little bit more towards the mortgage brokers, simply because the banks are one lender. They've got one source of funding. Now, there are a few banks that claim they have multiple lending sources now, and that is true. However, if they can't qualify you, then they may have 1 or 2 other options. Whereas with a mortgage broker, when you go to them, at least 50 options or more. And the nice thing about a mortgage broker also is that when they pull your credit report, what level of credit worthiness you have, they're going to pull it once and then they're going to submit it to multiple different lenders, sort of put it out to tender. Whereas a bank will pull your credit report once. You don't qualify there, you go to bank B, they're going to pull it again. You go to bank C, they're going to pull it again. And by the time you get to bank C or D, they're going to see that you've already been refused by a couple other banks, and it's going to be even more difficult. Plus, every time your credit report gets pulled, it creates a hit against you and your credit score. So you want to minimize the number of times you have your credit actually pulled. The other thing about a mortgage broker, a good mortgage broker, when they understand what it is you are doing with respect to your business, they know that you're going to be buying more properties. They understand the difficulty you have with respect qualify, could be because of your job status or whatever the case may be. A mortgage broker will take your credit score into consideration, your history into consideration, the property you're buying, and they will decide, well, lenders A and D are definitely not the ones to go to here, but if we take G and H, they would probably be interested in your, so they will, based upon their experience, decide who to send the mortgage application out to. So that's the value of a mortgage broker. A lot of people think that you have to pay for it. Not unless you're getting into commercial lending. That's when you start to pay service. The mortgage broker will be paid for wherever the money comes from. They will be compensated financially from that lender. Lesson number 3 was all about credit. The important part here is the value of keeping a good credit score. Bottom line is 650 and above is an absolute minimum of what you want to have. 650, preferably 700 or better is what you should be aiming for. If you're below 650, you're better off to stay off of a mortgage application, because you're going to be more harmful to the application than you are good. So this is why you want to make sure that your partners you are attracting, you could attract a money partner who's got the money to invest, is going on title with you, therefore they have to qualify with you. But if they have a bad credit score, then it could kill the deal right there. So make sure your joint venture partners have good credit as well. And be very protective of your credit. So like I mentioned earlier, I didn't even know about credit scores or the value of credit scores prior to pulling my report. When I first pulled my report and I saw how many credit cards I had on there, I was amazed, because every time you go to a department store and they offer you 5 or 10% off if you sign up for a credit card, why not? You're going to buy something, get some money off. I had no idea the impact that had on my credit. So after closing all of those credit cards as a customer request, my credit score skyrocketed. It also allows you to borrow more money, because you are reducing the amount of debt you can borrow through all of these credit cards, borrow more from the bank. It's really important to manage that. If you do have to carry debt on your credit card, make sure that your balances are below 50%, and really try and get those balances paid off as quickly as possible. Try and keep no more than 2 credit cards. But for the short term, if you need to have 3 or 4 credit cards in order to spread the debt out over 4 cards so that you can keep the balance below 500 or 50%, then I would suggest you do that. Work at getting the debt paid off and get the cards reduced down to just a couple cards. Lesson number 4, we talked about the down payments and how much is actually needed and where the money can come from. And since 2008 is when the rules for mortgages really changed, because of the mortgage crisis that hit in North America, especially in the United States. And up until that time, you were able to get up to 100% financing on investment properties. That is definitely no longer the case from the conventional lenders. If a private lender wants to lend you 100%, yes, you can still do it that way. But from the conventional lenders, the standard now, what you might as well stick with and expect is the 20% down. Actually be more than 20%. So for example, I was speaking with a student earlier today who is purchasing a property, and because of their jobs are now self-employed, the bank wants them to put 35% down, not just the 20%, which is a little bit more challenging because they have to come up with more money. And once they get the financing in place, close the deal, they can get some, if not all of that 35% back out through secondary financing by recycling their money. Payments can come from a variety of different places. You can use your own personal line of credit if you wish, because when they calculate how much you can qualify for, that's taken into consideration. That's part of the equation. So even though you owe nothing on your line of credit, the bank is going to assume that you owe 100% on that line of credit when they do their calculations to determine whether you can qualify for the mortgage. That's why you're able to actually use that line of credit for your down payment. Now, if you use somebody else's line of credit, then that's all good and fine, except the bank's going to want to know how you're going to pay that back, because that's technically a loan. Now, if that person is a partner, a joint venture partner, and they're on the mortgage with you, then that's not a problem. If the money is going to be gifted to you, which is highly unlikely that somebody is going to 20%, and the banks will see through that. You know, if it's a small amount like 5% is from a family member, then yes, they will accept the gifting. But if it's 20% and it's not a family member, then they know that that's just a loan on the side, and they're going to deny that request. If it's a loan, or if it's if not a loan, but if it's an investor who's investing with you and they're a joint venture partner, they're using their cash, then the bank's going to want to see, depending on the bank, but it's typically 90 days. They want to see where that money's been sitting for the past 90 days. So if it's been in a savings account, then you're going to have to prove that it's been in that savings account. Same thing if it's your own money. You have to prove where that money is coming from. And this is all because of the potential for money laundering. Real estate is a very easy vehicle for money laundering, so they're really cracking down on that. And it's not the bank's choice of this. The banks, really don't like doing this because it's a lot of paperwork for the banks and the mortgage brokers and the real estate agents as well. Lesson number 5, I was talking about the different types of investors. I talk about inclusive or exclusive. And here what I'm talking about is with an inclusive investor, you've got somebody who's hands-on. They want to be in there, rolling the sleeves up, helping you out, versus an exclusive where they step back and they just, they're a more passive investor. I prefer the more passive investor, somebody who's willing to hand over the money. They can be on title with me and qualify for the mortgage with me, but they're willing to allow me to do my job as an expert. I'm the investor, I'm the renovator, I'm the manager. So that's what I bring to the table. That's what you bring to the table. Let the money partner just hand the money over, and then you report to them. In the first year, you may have to report to them quarterly, and then the second or subsequent years after that, maybe it's, every 6 months you report to them, and then eventually it's down to a year. Whatever they are comfortable with, whatever they request, that's what you do for them. Lesson number 6, we talked about staying out of jail, and I may have scared a few people. I got a few questions about that one. It's not intended to scare you, but intended to keep you awake, keep you alert, because the Securities Commission is a very serious that regulates and manages how money is handled in our community. So what they're doing is they're trying to protect the uneducated investor. The educated investor or the accredited investor, they're not as concerned about, because in their opinion, anybody who's making over $250,000 or they have a net worth over $1 million, they feel that they can absorb a loss. They can take that risk. But the people who have lower net worth, lower income, the mom and pop who are making $50,000 each, and they've got $60,000 life savings that they hand over to you, and then you turn around and invest it in something risky and you lose it. Well, who's there to protect that investor? That's what the Securities Commission is all about. That's their purpose and intent. So I can't argue the intent. Unfortunately, it makes it a bit challenging for us to raise capital and to deal with those individuals, the people who are not accredited, and it makes it challenging and unfortunate for them because they can't get into a lot of the really good lucrative deals. So I see both sides of the scenario. Just make sure you check with your jurisdiction. What are the rules for raising capital? The easiest thing is just, to keep your nose clean and not raise any capital in the public. Don't post don't promise something that you can't guarantee, and you don't even use the word guarantee. Stay away from that. And the best way to do that is to attract your investors passively, which leads us into lesson number 7 of attracting investors. For myself personally, the best way that I have found to attract investors is to educate people. And and doing presentations, it doesn't have to be. But I raise a lot of money playing the game Cash Flow 101. I invite people to our house. It creates a nice social event. We have potluck dinners, so we get to meet and mingle with people. Started to do this again just in the past 4 months, I guess we've done it now. And what we do is we invite the same people back, but we encourage them to bring friends, family, new people. So there's always some fresh people playing the game. This year alone already, I have attracted money through RSPs and to invest in some of my real estate deals to free up some of my equity. In the past, in years past, I've raised several $100,000 just playing the game Cash Flow. People how to get out of the rat race, showing people the benefit of investing in real estate, showing how to be creative and how to help each other. It's all about helping each other. Another great way of doing it is start writing newsletters, and in the body of your newsletter, you can share past deals. If you don't have any deals to share, you can share other people's deals. I just heard that Ken did a deal where he used family's RSP money or friends' RSP money, and he's paying them 8% return on the deal. A win-win. What a great idea. Now, while you've for money, you've just put it out there and you're going to get people asking you questions. Well, how can I do that? As soon as people approach you and ask you how they can do something, how they can participate, they've opened the door. Now you can start talking about deals. Once you've got investors lined up, what you want to do is structure your deal fairly. So that gets us into the joint venture agreements as well. How do you structure your deal? Is it 50-50, 40-60? What is it? Depends on what the investor wants, what you're prepared to give, what the deal can sustain, what you bring to the table, what the investor brings to the table. What I suggest you do if you're a brand new investor for your first deal to get some experience, you may want to virtually give your first deal away to your investor, but keep a small equity position simply so you can get the experience and you can legitimately claim that you have a deal with a partner and that you were successful in structuring the deal, making it a win-win. The next deal that you do, if it's with the same partner, you might do an 80-20 where you keep 20% and the investor keeps 80. You build up that credibility. That same investor may do multiple deals with you and you work your way towards a 50-50 joint ventureship. And or that same investor may have friends and give you great testimonials. So what you want to do is you want to make sure you take care of your investor. They are premium, they're gold. So you want to build that trust and work towards building a relationship with them. So that's how you can split the deal, and then it's a question of if you do it 50-50, 40-60, whatever, is that just the equity? Is that the cash flow? You can split the cash flow 50-50 and split the equity 10-90. Cash 40-60 and the equity. You can do whatever both parties and you both agree on. There's no limit as to how you can structure the deal. You figure it out and both parties agree. The next thing you need to do is make sure you've got this in writing. Venture agreement, your co-tenancy agreement. In order to create your own, best you do is create a document, a what-if document. So you sit down with your partner or partners and you simply go through all the what-ifs that could potentially happen. You're going to have your own what-ifs that you come up with. Then you collectively put all your what-ifs together and you create solutions for them that you all agree upon. Now, a lot of people think, well, there we go. We've got our agreement put together. The challenge is that it's not in what I call legalese. In other words, it's not written so that it is clearly understood by all parties. I mean, the English language can be interpreted different ways. I could read a document and take one idea out of it, and somebody else could read it and think something different. And you wonder, are you reading the same document? So a lawyer will take this what if document and put it together into a legal joint venture agreement, which you can then either register against the property, against the title of the property, or not. It doesn't have to be. If you are both registered on title for that property, then it's not really that important to have the document registered on title. However, if you are not registered on title and your investor has brought all the money and they're registered on title, then you don't really have any protection to prevent the investor from selling that property out from under you or not honoring the agreement. So in a case like that, I would register the joint venture agreement against the title of the property. It's not as good as being on title, but it's the next best thing to protect your interest. We then talked about, so that was the first 8 lessons. Then lessons 9 was taking a look at the single family home analyzer. This analyzer is an abbreviated version of my apartment building analyzer. And I've created a Canadian and an American version. The American version will be out in a week or 2. And the only real difference between the two is the land transfer tax and the way a mortgage is actually calculated. With respect to the mortgage, it's not a huge difference. You're only talking on $100,000. You might be talking $1 or $2 a month difference in the way it's calculated. So it's not going to make a big deal to the deal if you use the wrong analyzer, wrong mortgage calculator, but 2 separate versions. Also, with the land transfer tax in the version that you have right now, which is the Canadian version, you'll see that there's a button that says with all of the states will be broken out as well. This calculator can be used for up to 4 units. Once you get beyond 4 units, you're into the commercial, and it's a different set of rules for the financing. Plus, there's more fit this model, the 5 Homes to Freedom model. So you want to use a different analyzer for that. Then in Module 10 and 11, Module 10, what I have done is just quickly gone through the mortgage analyzer, how to input information into it, and how to track it. Lesson number 11, what we did was an example, and Joanne sat with me, and that was a long one. That was about an hour long, I believe. And I decided to recycle that one because it was so good from the first version of 5 Homes to Freedom. I didn't see any need to change it. And Joanne did an excellent job playing that third party. And once you go through that, you'll probably want to. So that's the entire program now is open it up to Q&A. I've got the chat box open here so I can see people's messages live. But send in any questions ahead of time. And again, because of the size of the module, we're going to break it out into 2 weeks. The mortgage analyzer and the property analyzer have both been uploaded. They are now live. They are on the university site. So please download those 2 analyzers, play with them a lot, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions. If you're really struggling and you can't play with it before next Monday, then by all means send me an email. I'll walk you through it, and we may even get on a live call or something like that if we need to. But what I'd like you to do is just do some role playing. It doesn't matter whether the property, pull up some properties in your neighborhood. It doesn't matter that you're not going to buy them or you are going to buy them, whatever. Just make numbers up and go through the process just to get comfortable with the actual programs themselves. So, anybody got some questions? I've got nothing coming in here yet. Can people still see me? Hopefully I haven't been talking to myself all this time. It shows that I've got lots of people still on the call, so now I do know there's a delay of approximately 20 or 30 seconds between the time you type the question in and the time. So while we're waiting for that, that I was away. Actually, it was a Bob Proctor event. For those who don't know Bob Proctor, speakers in the movie The Secret Auction. So I went down for 3 days of training with Bob Proctor, which was absolutely phenomenal. And dealing with my own personal paradigms. And it doesn't matter how successful you are or are not, we all have things that continue to hold us back. So I'm still working on those myself. All right, and I'm just going to see if anything's coming through on emails. Oh, here we go. So Dav, when you refinance in lesson 11, okay, it makes your mortgage go back up, but the purpose is to reduce the mortgage as quickly as possible. Okay, so you're getting a little bit ahead of us there, Dav, because that's going to be the second strategy in this we're talking about. So far right now, what we have been focusing on is reducing and or eliminating the debt. Now, there's a variety of different strategies. I mean, there's so many strategies, I couldn't name them all. But for example, if your goal is to end up with 5 homes, free and clear, you may go through the process of owning 10 homes. And during that process, you may, after say 5 years, you may take 5 of those properties, refinance them, take the equity out of those homes through a loan, pay down the debt on the other 5 homes that you plan on keeping, so that you can eliminate the debt on those quickly. So you're transferring the debt basically from 5 properties onto another 5 properties. This is just off the top of my head here. And doing that, instead of selling those 5 properties and taking the equity out, when you sell the properties, you'd have to pay taxes on them. When you finance or refinance those properties, you're not paying tax on the borrowed money because it's not earned income. So you take the money and you apply it to the debt of the others. So that's one strategy, but you're right in that with the 5 homes to freedom strategy, based on the initial goal of the program, it's to pay down the mortgages as quickly as possible. And to refinance feels like you're defeating the purpose. It all depends on the strategy though. So the mortgage value is reduced to, oh, hang on, it's jumping. The mortgage value is reduced to $207,000 after 5 years. Then refinance to $316 to pay out your lender. Isn't this going backwards? I think I just, and that's going to be more clear as we move forward, Dave, or Dav, sorry. And I will, yeah, that's going to be addressed more as we move forward, especially in the very last module, which is a slightly different strategy. So I'm not trying to put you off. I'm not trying to not answer your question. Well, it'd be easier to answer that one in the future. Okay, question here from Donna. During your last video with Joanne as your investor, you refinanced and removed her from title as one option. What is the process and how much does it cost to remove someone from title? Well, it depends on the province or state that you're in. It could trigger land transfer tax if they are on title, and they're just a money investor with a joint venture agreement registered against the title. Then there'd be no cost, well, there'd be the legal fees, but there would be no land transfer tax because title has not been changed. But if I'm on title with you, so I've got Mary Lou is my investor, she's on title with me. It's time to pay her out so that I am free and clear with that single family home. Then it'll actually trigger a sale, not the full value of the property, but there will be a sale and there will be land transfer tax that will have to be paid, depending again on the jurisdiction you are in. Sorry. So that'll end up being just part of the cost of doing the transaction, and that could cost you $1,000 on top of the legal fees. Good question though, absolutely. All right, so some more questions here. So what I will do is with Dav's question to probably, I'm not sure exactly where in the program I will insert this yet. I have to give this some thought, but I will come up with another scenario similar to what I just suggested, where you're actually take, if you buy 10 houses this year, and it's all hypothetical, so you have to work with me. But if you're using investors and you buy 10 properties this year, and then in 5 years' time you refinance 5 of them to pay off the first 5, just to go through that process, I'll come up with some scenario like that to help clarify that question for you, Dav, because I'm sure if you've got that question, others will as well, or else it will be creating questions as we move forward. All right, I'm just going to check my email to see if anything's come in there as well, because that's really funny. That's where they came in last time. Why not? All right, does your spreadsheet accommodate 2 mortgages, and how to keep them organized with the appropriate property? So let me, can I open it up quickly here? The mortgage analyzer, sorry, I'm just thinking, the mortgage analyzer itself will not allow for 2 mortgages on one property. It will allow for payments from other properties to be added on for your lump sum payments and or the increasing the size of the monthly payment. And it will manage multiple mortgages on multiple properties, but only 1 mortgage per property. I think I think I understand where you're going, Donna. If you've got an 80% loan to value mortgage on a property, and the 20% is or a loan that you're making payments to somebody else, whatever the case may be, what I would do in a case like that is I would put the information on mortgage on the property. 20% is your cash that you've put in. With that scenario, there's, for argument's sake, there's $800 a month cash flow. For that, that 20% that you've borrowed from somebody else, for argument's sake, we'll say is $200 a month. There is a space for, in the expense section, that you can, it's called other. What you can do is just put the $200 in there, and that will come off of the revenue. That'll reduce your monthly income down to $600. So that's how you could account for that second mortgage on a property or second loan or whatever it may be if you have it. So hopefully that answers or will provide a solution for you. And that way you can see that you've only got $600 a month play with and to pay down on that mortgage or one of the other properties as well. Sorry, I was checking to see if I had any here. No emails coming in. So I know last time I cut out and there was a couple questions that came in late, so I want to make sure I don't do that tonight. And we've been on here for about 40 minutes with our Q&A so far. We'll get this figured out and improve better as we go forward. That's for sure. It's my apologies, and get all the bugs worked out next time. Says great, thank you. Not a problem, Donna. All right, Elliot, you must have a question. I haven't heard from you yet. Well, believe it or not, as frustrating as this might be for you, imagine how awkward it is for me sitting here. No. All right, well, it is, it's just after 10 o'clock, so we're on time with respect. And I'm going to hang on live here, so if you're questions coming in. Elliot's, I'm still using revision 1, okay. The analyzer, I'm assuming, Elliot, or are you still, which you that particular program, because a lot of people, when they were looking at single family homes, to have analyzer, which I use for they're using that. It just has a lot more information in it than what is necessary for single family. And so it was confusing a lot of people when there was when they were trying to analyze a single family home, because they were, you know, wondering what the gross rent multiplier meant and what the cap rate meant. And when you're looking at single family homes, it's not really applicable. So if you're using that, Elliot, and it's working for you, by all means stick with it. But if you want to use the other one for the single families, it's there as well. All right, so Dav just has a question here. Is there any point buying an already suited home at a higher purchase price? Well, absolutely. If you can buy, I mean, as long as you got to take a look at, that's a great question, by the way. Yeah, it depends on the suited home. Is it functional, first of all? Is it safe and legal? If you have to start ripping out the ceiling and changing the heating system, electrical, or whatever the case may be, then a renovation can be almost as much, if not more, money than to do a complete build in the first place. So you have to look at the pros and cons. But generally speaking, I would say that if you can find a suited home, then it's usually less expensive to modify it. You're right, though, in that you're going to have to pay a higher purchase price. Partly because they're more popular, depending on the market, and they're going to be marketed as a lot of mortgage helper. A lot of agents market them as mortgage helpers, and it's a great way to filter to market a property to first-time home buyers, especially in more expensive markets. When I was in Edmonton, that was one of my key strategies, was first-time home buyers buy a suited house and have the tenant downstairs pay 60, 70, 80% of your mortgage payment to get into home ownership much sooner than if you had to wait 2 or 3 more years to save more money or get better jobs, etc. So unfortunately, that does create a higher purchase price for you. So you have to look at the numbers. It's all about the numbers. Now, having said that, if you can get a property that you have to pay more for, have to invest any more money into, and your cash flow goes from, say, $700 down to $400 a month, determine, well, is it worth it? It might be. I mean, it depends on your investors. It depends on how wants out of the deal. There's so many variables, and that's why it's important to get comfortable with the analyzer so that you can play with all of those different scenarios. And yeah, just have fun doing it. All right, so good questions. So as a note for next time, what would be really helpful is if you have questions that you'd like answered, and again, it can go back to lesson or module number 1 as well. And if you can email those questions in, what I will do is I will answer those questions during the live presentation as well, because again, there's a good chance that other people have that same question as well. So I'd like to share that answer with as many people as possible. Plus it then gets recorded for everybody else. And it also provides me with some legitimate questions. I wasn't prepared well enough here. Obviously, I could have had some questions that I could have answered, during this dead space. Anyhow, it looks like we are pretty much wrapped up. There's been it's 4 minutes since the last question came in, or last comment came in. So I'm assuming that there are no more questions. So I look forward to speaking with everybody again next week. I will be on time. I'm going to have all the bugs worked out of this thing, and I will encourage people to send questions in ahead of time. And I look forward to seeing everybody. Good luck, and we'll see you at the top.